But I think the real question is, are there still decent buys out there right now, especially in the remaining units in the existing new launches that actually make more sense than waiting and paying for the future prices? That's why in this video, I want to walk you through what you can realistically buy with a 2.5 million budget today, and why some of these options are actually worth considering if you missed out on the recent launches. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel as we draw an end to 2025. So the property market over the past year has been very clear about one thing, which is that the demand hasn't slowed, but access has actually become harder. Many recent launches are selling out or almost sold out, and for many buyers, the challenge is no longer about affordability, but about the allocation. So instead of reacting emotionally, I want to take a step back in this video and look at the market a bit more strategically. Honestly, after so many recent launches being sold out or almost sold out, I know a lot of you are feeling a bit maybe sian in a way. So you queue, you ballot, and in the end, you still don't get a unit. And then the question becomes, should you wait for the next launch? But at the same time, we all know land bid prices are going up and up every year and every quarter, which means that upcoming launches are likely going to be priced even higher. But I think the real question is, are there still decent buys out there right now, especially in the remaining units in the existing new launches that actually make more sense than waiting and paying for the future prices? That's why in this video, I want to walk you through what you can realistically buy with a 2.5 million budget today, and why some of these options are actually worth considering if you missed out on the recent launches. I'll explain my thinking as we go. So for today, I'll be walking you through 3 projects that I think are worth considering if you're working with a $2.5 million budget. For each project, we'll keep it simple. I'll briefly touch on the location and some of the key project details, and then look at the price points of the units that we are considering. I will also compare these price points with what has already been transacted within the same development, and as well as how they stack up against upcoming launches, which are expected to come in at higher price points. And towards the end, we'll take a quick look at the layouts of the selected units just to see how practical they are for day-to-day living. And again, if you like the content so far, do feel free to follow my channel where I will analyze more relevant latest topics pertaining to the real estate market in Singapore. So for this video, I first narrowed things down a little bit. So we're only looking for 3 and 4 bedroom units. And below a $2.5 million price point, honestly, there are plenty of 1 to 2 bedroom options out there, especially in the core central region area. But if we're thinking a bit more long term, especially from an exit perspective, I personally find 3 and 4 bedroom units more interesting because the buyer pool tends to be wider, and you'll also be looking at families as well as HDB upgraders. And on top of that, I also focus on projects with at least around 200 units. This is because larger developments generally have more transactions over time, which helps with the price stability and also makes the exit strategy less volatile. So after filtering based on a $2.5 million budget, focusing on the 3 and 4 bedroom units and looking at projects with a sufficient scale, there are around 10 existing new launch projects in the market today that still fit these criteria, which are right over here. So in this slide, I sorted all the 3 and 4 bedroom units across these 10 projects by the price per square foot, from the lowest to the highest. And this is really just to give you a quick overview of what's actually available in the market right now and how the different projects stack up against one another from a pricing perspective. It's not always saying that the cheaper the price and it's always better, but more about understanding where each project sits before we narrow things down further. So the first project I want to talk about is Terra Hill. So this is a freehold development located in Pasir Panjang area, and it's within walking distance to Pasir Panjang MRT. It's also close to the Greater Southern Waterfront Transformation, which is a longer-term growth area that many buyers and investors are keeping an eye on. So this is the location map for Terra Hill. You can see that Pasir Panjang MRT is just to the south, which is one of the main transport links in the area. And around Terra Hill, there are quite a number of older developments. They are generally much bigger in the unit size. If we take for example, Island View, we got the Fragrance Court, West Point condos like that. These are bigger in quantum and size. So because of that, even though their PSF is on the lower side, their overall price quantum tends to be a lot higher. This gives you some context on where Terra Hill sits in terms of pricing and positioning within the neighborhood itself. So one project I want to highlight, which we'll come back to later on, is Crescent Hill Residences, which is right over here. And it's located just to north of Terra Hill itself. So this is a 99-year development that has recently TOP'd. So its transaction prices give us a pretty good reference point for the area today. So what's important to note here is that Terra Hill is freehold, whereas Crescent Hill Residences is 99 years. So when we compare the prices later on, the difference in tenure is something worth keeping in mind. So a quick overview of Terra Hill. It's developed by Hoi Hub Realty and Sunway, which is a very well-known and established developer. They've done a number of good quality projects over the years, including some well-designed ECs. In terms of the scale, Terra Hill has 9 blocks altogether, is capped at 5 stories because this whole area is zoned for low-rise residential, especially since it's along landed enclave. Okay, altogether, there are 270 units with 1:1 parking, which is something buyers will definitely appreciate. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a freehold project and the expected TOP is actually in the Q3 of 2026, so it's actually not too far away. If you're someone who prefers a project that's almost ready to move in, rather than waiting many years, this could be quite a good option to consider. So if we compare Terra Hill with other existing new launches, the most straightforward comparison is really within the remaining projects in District 5 itself. So right now, the main ones to look at are Bloomsbury Residences as well as Alta. Okay, both of these are 99-year developments, whereas Terra Hill is the only freehold project among them. If we focus on the 3-bedroom units, the current lowest price unit in Terra Hill is actually at 2.4 million thereabouts. Okay, which is actually around $200,000 cheaper than at Alta, okay, at 2.6 million thereabouts. And Alta is also a 99-year project and not very near the MRT. For Bloomsbury, you can, for the cheapest 3-bedder, you can get it's around 2.3 million. And again, it's also a 99-year development and it's not close to the MRT at all. So when you put everything side by side in terms of the tenure, the pricing, and the location, Terra Hill stands out quite clearly. So based on the available units today, if you're comparing within District 5, this is actually quite a compelling option to consider. So next, let's compare the remaining units in Terra Hill, which have already been transacted within the same project. So if we look at the transacted 3-bedroom units, the PSF range is quite tight. So the lowest transacted PSF is around 2,200 and the average is around 2,600 and the highest is around 2,800 per square foot. So now, if we look at the remaining units, they're generally priced around the 2,400 to 2,500 per square foot range, which is slightly below the average which has already been sold. So yes, some of these remaining units are on the lower floors, but this is also a low-rise development, so the difference in floor height isn't so significant. And in fact, the stack orientation and facing sometimes matter more. So when you look at it this way, a 2.4 plus mil 3-bedder in a freehold project, okay, or in the RCR like Terra Hill is actually pretty compelling, okay, in today's market, especially when you compare it against both the past transactions and what's coming next. Okay, so this is the 969 square feet 3-bedder layout that is still available in Terra Hill. So even though it's a compact layout, I think it's still quite functional. You still get a fully enclosed kitchen over here, which many families prefer with the window especially. And there's also a bomb shelter for storage, okay, which is always practical. So I'll say the main compromise here is the 3rd bedroom over here, which is a bit smaller than the 2nd bedroom right over here. So based on the proportions, okay, you can likely still fit a queen size bed, okay, but it will be a tighter fit and perhaps also likely only being able to fit one side table. Other than that, for a 3-bedder at this size and price point, I would say this is a fairly efficient and workable layout. So next, let's compare Terra Hill with some of the upcoming launches. So this map that we see here shows the existing projects in the western part of Singapore, as well as the launches we already know that are going to come up in 2026. So if we stay within the same district, one upcoming site is along Media Circle, Parcel A. And this land was sold to Tingjian and Hufasan in March 2025, and the transacted PSF or the land pricing is around 1037 per square foot per plot ratio. So based on the land price, the estimated break-even price works out to be around 1867 per square foot. And of course, break-even is just a reference. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that the project will launch cheaper. In fact, if developers buy land at a lower price, it doesn't always translate to lower launch prices. So now if we compare the two, Terra Hill and Media Circle are actually very different products. So Media Circle is a 99-year development and it's not as close to an MRT, whereas Terra Hill is freehold and within walking distance to Pasir Panjang MRT. So, if we conservatively say that, a 20% freehold premium for Terra Hill, okay, the current pricing still makes sense in today's context. And that's why when we compare with the upcoming launches, where pricing is still uncertain, Terra Hill still remains a reasonable option right now. So to summarize, okay, Terra Hill starts from around the $2,200 per square foot range for a freehold project near the MRT. In comparison, Bloomsbury starts from around $2,400 per square foot, and Alta is even higher at this point, around the $2,800 per square foot range, and both of these are 99-year projects. And what's also interesting is that the remaining 3-bedder units in Terra Hill today are priced below average transacted PSF, which means that your entry price is already supported by past transactions. So what's also interesting is that the remaining 3-bedroom units in Terra Hill today priced below the average transacted PSF, which means that your entry price is already supported by the past transactions within the same condo. As for Media Circle, even if launch prices come in at around the low to mid 2000 PSF thereabouts, it is still a 99-year development and is not near the MRT. So at the similar pricing level, Terra Hill remains still, I would say, a pretty attractive option. So moving on to the second option under 2.5 million, we have the Crescent, which is located in the Beauty World area. One thing I like about this location is that you're also tapping on the transformation around the Beauty World MRT, and you already have the reserved residences over here, which is part of the upcoming integrated transport hub. And in the future, this will mean that there will be a large retail mall, an integrated MRT station, and a fully air-conditioned bus interchange as well, all within one place. And these are the kind of infrastructure upgrades that tend to support prices over time, and that's why Beauty World continues to be a location many buyers are watching very closely. So this is the location map of the Crescent. So you can see that the Crescent is right at the junction of the old Jurong Road as well as Jalan Jurong Kecil, and it's also right beside Verdale. So that gives you a good point of reference. So of course, objectively, it is not as close to the MRT compared to some of the neighbouring projects in the area, but the upside is that it sits along a very quiet, low-density residential pocket, which some buyers would actually prefer. So I would say it's more of a peaceful neighbourhood-style location. A quick overview. So the project comprises of 5 residential blocks, each about 10 stories high. So one interesting feature here is that it also comes with a childcare centre, which is relatively uncommon and can be a big plus for families with young kids. And in total, there are 347 units, and you get 1:1 parking, which is always good to have. And since this project launched recently, the expected TOP is around August 2029. So for the Crescent, the most straightforward comparison is, we'll say it's Verdale, which is right next door and is already TOP'd recently. So if we look at the recent transactions at Verdale, the average PSF for 3-bedroom units is around 2,096 per square foot. Now because Verdale is a pre-harmonized project, so if we add around 5 to 6% to make it more comparable to the Crescent, which is GFA harmonized, that works out to roughly around $2,200 per square foot. And when we look at what's currently available at the Crescent, many of the 3-bedder units are also priced around the $2,200 per square foot range, which is similar to Verdale. So essentially, you're buying at a brand new development, at pricing that's very much in line with an older project right next door. But do bear in mind that Verdale's land price was bought several years ago and its lease started from 2018, while the Crescent's lease started from 2025, which is 7 years newer. And from a pricing perspective, that makes the Crescent, I would say, quite compelling in today's market. So here, we're comparing the compact 3-bedder layout at the Crescent, which is at 872 square feet, against the 3-bedder at Verdale, which is 1,001 square feet pre-harmonized. So if we adjust the Crescent size to make it more apple-to-apple comparison, by adding back stuff like the aircon ledge and the similar areas, it would work out to probably around 920 to 930 square feet, which is still slightly smaller than Verdale, of course. But that being said, when you look at the actual layouts, both are proper 3-bedder units that both come with utility spaces for storage. But I'll say the Crescent's layout is more dumbbell style. The bedrooms on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the living room, which makes it more efficient, and it also has less entrance walkway space over here, right? And that is probably a bit more efficient compared to Verdale with more walkway space at the main entrance. So Verdale's layout is more of a traditional corner type 3-bedroom. All the bedrooms are all over here. And one difference, I would say mainly between the two layouts is the kitchen. So the Crescent has a more open kitchen concept, whereas Verdale's is more enclosed. But I would say for the Crescent, you do have the option to enclose the kitchen next time if you wish to do so. So overall, while Verdale is larger on paper, I would say the Crescent uses its space more efficiently and the layout holds up very well in comparison. So next, let's compare the available units in the Crescent with what has already been transacted within the same development. So from the transactions so far, the average PSF for 3-bedroom is around $2,300 per square foot, with some deals going up to around $2,500 per square foot. So I would say what's interesting is that today, there are still quite a few 3-bedder units available from around the $2,200 per square foot range, which is actually below the average transacted prices over here. So in that sense, I would say at this point, your entry price is supported by the existing transactions within the same project, which would be a good safety net. So if we compare the Crescent with the upcoming launches, the closest I would say the apple-to-apple comparison will be at Dairy Farm Walk, which is known as currently Nara Residences, which will be previewing in January 2026. So I'll say both are in similar general locality, though Nara is probably, would say, more further in, but I'll say both projects are GFA harmonized, so the comparison is quite fair. So if you look at land prices, Nara was purchased at around 1,020 Okay, 1020 per square foot per plot ratio, whereas the Sen's land price was around $844 per square foot per plot ratio, which is around $200 cheaper. So based on that, the estimated break-even price for Nara is around 1844 per square foot compared to the Sen at 1602 per square foot. So we know that based on some of the latest information, Nara starts at an attractive headline price of around $1,900 to $2,000 per square foot. But however, the average and transacted prices in the end are likely to probably end up higher than what's still available at the Sen today, taking into consideration the higher land bid price translated to higher break-even price. And from a timing perspective, this is why I feel that the Sen is worth taking a closer look at right now, because once Nara Residences launches, there's a good chance that there will be spillover buyers that will come back and pick up the remaining good units there. So if you put everything together, the pricing of the Sen, would say, actually makes a lot of sense. When we compare it with Verdale, over here, which is an older development right next door, and we adjust both to be on a harmonized basis, the PSF is actually very similar. Okay, and that means that you're effectively getting a brand new project at a pricing that is very similar to an older resale condo that's beside. So if we look at the Sen itself, the average transacted PSF for 3-bedroom units is around 2,300 per square foot, and we've even seen transactions go up to 2,500 per square foot. So being able to enter today at around 2,200, I would say it's a pretty good bargain. And as for Nara Residences, of course, the full pricing isn't out yet, but average prices are likely to fall somewhere in the $2,200 to $2,400 per square foot range. And it's also located further away from the Beauty World integrated transport hub and the main amenities. So when you come across the older projects, current transactions, and the upcoming launches, you can see why the Sen stands out quite clearly from a pricing perspective. So for the last of the 3 projects that we've shortlisted, we have Canberra Crescent Residences, or CCR for short. So the main reason this project made the list is really quite simple. It comes with a very attractive price point, especially when you compare what you can get for the same budget elsewhere. So let's take a closer look at where it's located and why I feel it stands out. So looking at the location map, CCR, or Canberra Crescent Residences, isn't directly next to an MRT station. It sits roughly, this way is over here, it sits roughly in between Canberra Station as well as Sembawang MRT, although it's generally closer towards the Canberra Station. So that being said, it's also right beside Provence Residences, which is a newer EC. You also have the Sembawang Community Club within the vicinity. And you're also relatively close to the Bukit Canberra Active SG gym and sports center, which comes with sports facilities and a hawker center as well. And there's also a Sheng Siong nearby for daily groceries. So I think, it's all-encompassing area. For the bigger retail needs, most residents would probably head to the Canberra Plaza, or they would head to Sun Plaza, which is closer to Sembawang MRT. So because this project is located within a very HDB-heavy established township, it naturally sits right in the path of HDB upgraders in the area. So when you think about exit in the future, I would say there's already an existing pool of buyers nearby who are familiar with the location, and they might look to upgrade within the same neighborhood in the future. So a quick overview of CCR is jointly developed by Keng Leong and Loh Keng Huat, which are very established developers in the market. So in total, the project has 376 units, and there are 4 residential blocks that are about 12 stories high. So it also comes with a childcare center over here, which is a very nice plus point for families. So the expected TOP is around April 2030, and I'll say this is more suitable for buyers who are comfortable with more of a longer waiting period. So in terms of the parking, there are 382 car park lots, which is more than 1:1 car park ratio, which is something that's quite rare these days. So to put CCR into context, one good comparison we can use is Norwood Grand, which launched last year. So although they're technically in different districts, so Norwood Grand is in District 25, whereas Canberra Crescent is in District 27. In terms of location and the proximity, I would say both sit within the northern region and appeal to a very similar buyer profile. Also, both projects are GFA harmonized, so when we look at PSF, it's a fairly apple-to-apple comparison as well. So now if we look at Norwood Grand, we know it performed very well at launch with about around 84% sold on the first day. And for the 3-bedroom units, the average PSF transacted is around the $2,000 per square foot range, with some transactions going up to $2,100 per square foot. So I'll say at this point, there's also very limited availability left at Norwood Grand, because there are no 3-bedder units left, and there are only the 4 plus study units left. When we compare that to CCR, units here are currently starting from around $1,900 per square foot. And in terms of the price quantum, the lowest price units are around the 1.6 million to $1.7 million range, which is very attractive for a 3-bedroom. Hence, from a value perspective, I would say CCR does stand out quite clearly. So let's compare the 3-bedder layouts. So at Norwood Grand, the 3-bedder units come in at 872 square feet and 883 square feet. So the layouts are more traditional, with the bedrooms more flanked towards one side, and both layouts come with a small study nook near the entrance. I'll highlight that over here. So for the 872 square feet layout, there is a foyer area over here. So some may see this as a slightly wasted space, but I'll say this will also give you the opportunity to have some storage space, shoe cabinets, or built-ins along this foyer area. So I'll say both Norwood Grand layouts also come with an enclosed kitchen, with windows, which many buyers still prefer for daily living. So now if you compare this with CCR, the 3-bedder layouts, there are about they are 797 square feet as well as 872 square feet. So the smaller unit does not come with a study, and the kitchen is more of a open kitchen concept. The larger 872 square feet layout does have a study. That's right over here. But it also comes with some entrance foyer within the walkway itself. So overall, while the sizes are quite similar, the difference really comes down to the layout preference. So I'll say, Norwood Grand offers a more traditional enclosed and functional layout, while I'll say CCR leans more towards a modern open feel. So both are GFA harmonized and efficiently designed, so there are no major drawbacks on either side. It really boils down to what style suits you better. One important thing to highlight is that with a $2.5 million budget, if you're looking to upgrade in terms of space, you can perhaps even afford a 4-bedder unit in Canberra Crescent residences. So when we sort the available 4-bedder units by PSF, prices, I would say, start from around $1,800 per square foot. And in terms of the price quantum, some 4-bedder layouts are available from around $2.1 million upwards. So more importantly, I'll say CCR still has a good selection of 4-bedder units at this point, so buyers have good choices. So now if we compare this with Norwood Grand, the average transacted PSF for 4-bedroom units is around $2,015 per square foot. And on the higher end, transactions have already crossed $2,100 per square foot. And what's more, the remaining 4-bedroom Premium Plus with study units at Norwood Grand are already transacting priced around 2.6 to 2.7 million, much higher than CCR. And I'll say, this amounts to around a 500 to 600K difference, which is a lot. And when you put this side by side, CCR allows you to buy a larger 4-bedroom home at a much lower price point, often at PSF levels comparable to or even lower than a 3-bedder unit in many RCR or even OCR projects today. In fact, it's even cheaper than some of the 2-bedders in the RCR and the Core Central region. And that's really why Canberra Crescent Residences stands out so strongly for buyers who are focused on space and value. So let's start with the Norwood Grand's 4-bedder layouts. So overall, Norwood Grand's 4-bedder layouts are very well done. They lean more towards a traditional format. So these layouts come with both a separate dry and wet kitchen, a yard, a study, and also additional WC and a household shelter. The master bedroom is where Norwood Grand places a lot of emphasis. In the larger layouts, you get a more generous master suite, for example over here, and often comes with walk-in wardrobe. Which is quite rare in today's market. It actually gives it a more luxurious and private feel. I'll say balcony-wise, Norwood Grand has one in the living room area, as well as the master bedroom. So in terms of the layout quality and lifestyle feel, Norwood Grand does present itself as a more spacious and premium option, especially for buyers who value a larger master bedroom. So now if we shift our focus to CCR's 4-bedder layouts, the positioning is quite different. So CCR's 4-bedder units are more compact in size, but more importantly, they still deliver a proper and complete 4-bedder configuration. You still get the dry, as well as the wet kitchens, and things like the yard, spare WC, and the bomb shelter. These are all fitted in as well, including the study. So while one of the layouts does not have a bomb shelter, the other two do. The internal planning is efficient with minimal wasted space. So the balcony at CCR is larger than that at Norwood, especially as you can see from the layouts here, being more landscape. It runs across the living and dining in one, and also the living and study in the other two, in a landscape setting. So bedroom sizes at CCR are more practical rather than luxurious. So the master bedrooms are smaller and doesn't come with walk-in wardrobes like Norwood Grand. But I'll say it does still comfortably fit a queen-size bed with the wardrobe, okay, while the remaining bedrooms function well as real bedrooms rather than compromised spaces. Okay, and this is where CCR really stands out on the value. So despite being more compact, CCR offers genuine 4-bedroom homes at prices that are roughly 500 to 600k lower than comparable units in Norwood Grand. Okay, so for buyers who want a more proper family size layout, but are mindful of budget, this price gap is quite meaningful. So when you compare the two projects side by side, Norwood Grand, I would say, wins on the size and the luxury, but CCR wins on the value and the affordability. You're still getting a real 4-bedroom unit, just at a much more accessible price point, and for many family buyers, that trade-off makes a lot of sense. So next, let's compare with the available units at CCR with what has already been transacted. So if we look at the past transactions, the average PSF is close to $2,000 per square foot, okay, with some deals reaching the higher end of 2,082 per square foot. So when we look at the units still available today, the PSF range is actually quite similar. Okay, so there are still some units at 1,009 and going up to around $2,000 per square foot as well. So in terms of price quantum, the lowest available units start from around 1.62 million, and overall the remaining units are fairly uniformly priced, okay, without a big jump in PSF. So the key advantage here is that there's still a wide selection of units available with pricing that's already supported by past transactions. Okay, and that's why CCR stands out, because the pricing is stable, consistent, well supported, while still giving buyers plenty of choice. So now let's look at the 4-bedroom units, comparing what has already been transacted with what's still available. So based on the past transactions, the average PSF for 4-bedroom units is around 1,009 okay, to around the $2,000 range. So when we look at units currently available, there are still some priced below $1,900 per square foot, okay, which is actually lower than some of the average transacted levels. Similar to the 3-bedroom units, pricing for the 4 bedrooms has been quite stable without large swings. And that consistency is also important because it suggests that current prices are already well supported by the past transactions, while still offering some opportunities slightly below the average. So now let's compare CCR with the upcoming launches. So to do that, it's helpful first to see the land cost that CCR was purchased at. So the site was purchased at around $793 per square foot per plot ratio, which is relatively low compared to many newer sites today. So to give some context when we compare CCR with the upcoming launches, this map shows us the rough locations of a few sites that are most relevant for comparison. So I'll say the first one that we can compare with is Chencharu Close. Okay, this site is relatively close to Khatib MRT, which is about 2 stops away from Canberra MRT, where CCR is located, of course. So while Chencharu Close isn't too far from CCR, it does have the advantage of being closer to the MRT station, which is over here. The second site I want to highlight is the Upper Thomson Parcel A, which is located right next to Springleaf MRT on the Thomson East Coast Line. So this is the same location as Springleaf Residences, which almost sold out on the launch day. So these two upcoming sites gives us a good benchmark in terms of the location and connectivity when we compare against the CCR. Okay, so when you put this together, it's quite clear that next year's launches are likely to be priced higher because the land bid prices are already bid much higher than that of CCR. So of course there are differences in the location. Some of them are, some of the upcoming sites are closer to the MRT stations. But when it comes to the everyday amenities, Canberra, being a mature HDB township, still enjoys a much wider range of established amenities compared to places like Springleaf. You have the neighbourhood shops, the community facilities, the malls like Canberra Plaza and Sun Plaza, which will make the daily living more convenient. And more importantly, if you're working with a tighter budget, I would say CCR gives you more choices today and even allows you to look at the larger size units compared to, say, what you're likely to get at Chencharu Close or Upper Thomson when they launch, which would likely be more expensive. And by the time these projects come to market, there's a good chance that many of the better price units at CCR would have already been snapped up by competing buyers. So from a timing and value perspective, if you're looking for more price-efficient entry, I would say it often makes more sense to consider what's available now rather than waiting and paying higher prices later. So if you pull all the comparisons today, I would say CCR actually holds up pretty well. First, when we compare CCR with the existing projects like Norwood Grand, in terms of the pricing, you can already get similar PSF levels at CCR or even lower. At the same time, Norwood Grand has a very limited stock left with only higher priced 4-bedder premium plus study units remaining. And next, when we look at the CCR, within CCR itself, both the 3 and 4-bedder units that are still available are priced on par with past transactions. So you're not really paying a premium after launch. You're entering at prices that are similar to what your neighbors have already bought at. And from an exit perspective, this helps maintain a very strong resale position in the future. And lastly, when we compare CCR with the upcoming launches in nearby areas like Chencharu Close, and the Upper Thomson plots, the land bids and the land bid prices are already significantly higher, which means that future launch prices are likely to be higher as well. And that's why these upcoming projects will act as a price support for CCR. And taken together, this is what makes the available units at CCR quite compelling in today's market. So to wrap things up, these are the top 3 projects that I would personally consider if you're working with a $2.5 million budget in today's market. Of course, if you found this video useful, do remember to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel to grow. And if you'd like to chat about the other good buys in the market, or explore different options at different price points, do feel free to reach out, and I'm always happy to share my thoughts and help you weigh your options, so you don't have to feel stressed about the next new launch or the next balloting phase. So we're coming to the end of the year, so I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and a good start to 2026, and I'll be excited to share more insights, and the upcoming opportunities for 2026 itself. So enjoy the holidays, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.